Hey guys, it's Chad with Above Ground Pros. Hey, I wanted to go over the features of your Hayward Aquatrol salt system. I notice a lot of people don't understand all that this has to offer and what all the knobs control, and I want to go over them with you, okay? So first of all, let's start at the timer. Now keep in mind this part of the salt system is for your timer. It is strictly for use of your pump. This has nothing to do with producing chlorine, nothing to do with salt. This is strictly for your pump. Now first of all, what you're going to do, if you see this arrow here, you're going to grab that knob where all the white buttons are, and you're going to turn it clockwise until you set the time. That's how you set your time, right here at this arrow. Now, once you get close to the time, you can just look at the center of the screen here, and it shows you a clock, so you can get a little more accurate with it, okay? But once you turn that, you set your time to where your present time is in line with that arrow. Check your clock for being a little more accurate. And then wherever you push these white pins out, your pump is going to turn on. Wherever the white pins are pushed in, your pump's going to turn off. Okay? Then another feature is you have a manual override here of your pump, whether it's on or not. You see this little white knob here. Right now, it's in the middle position, which comes down here and shows you a little picture of a clock. That means your timer is controlling your pump. If you were to flip this white switch up to the Roman numeral 1, it's going to run your pump 24/7. It's going to bypass the timer and run your pump until you manually turn that switch off. Now, if you turn the white switch down to where it says 0, that means it's bypassing your timer and your pump is turned off, and it's never going to turn itself on until you flip that switch back to either timer or back to Roman numeral 1. Okay? So that's your timer. That's all there is to know about your timer. Now here is your salt section. This is all going to have to do with chlorine, how much salt you have, how things are running, and let's go over the parts individually. First of all, let's start with your desired output. Now your desired output is how much chlorine your salt system is going to produce. For instance, right here it's set at about 73%. In the middle of the summer when it's hot, you're using the pool every day, you're going to want to have this about 70-80%. Now, when it comes to the winter time or the early and late times of the season, you don't need to produce that much chlorine. You can kick this thing back to 30 or 40%. It won't produce as much chlorine, but you won't need as much chlorine for the pool. So that's what your desired output is for, how much chlorine you want your salt system to produce. And I keep it around 70 or 80 throughout the heat of the season when you're using the pool the most. Now here's your chlorination switch. There's 3 levels here. First of all, off. Off means it's never going to produce chlorine until you turn it on to auto or superchlorinate. When you turn it on to auto, this is where the salt system is going to produce chlorine in conjunction with your desired output, how much you want it to produce, and it's going to automatically do it. This is where you're going to leave it 99.9% of the time. Okay? Now, the switch above it, if you flip it all the way up, is superchlorinate. What this means is Hayward has a feature on here. Let's say the pool starts to get murky. You need to get your chlorine level up. You flip it on superchlorinate. For 24 hours by Hayward specs, it's going to produce chlorine consistently for 24 hours. Now, after 24 hours, it's going to turn that superchlorinate off. Whether that's still in the switch position or not, it's going to turn itself off. If you wanted to continue superchlorinating, you would turn that switch to off, go back to superchlorinate, and it would start for another 24 hours. But that's what superchlorinate's for. It's really only for emergency situations. Auto is where you're going to keep it 99.9% of the time. Now let's go over the different lights here. Your power light, that's going to be on when you're, when you're turned on and you have power going to the salt system. Generating is going to come on when you have your salt switch to auto, and it's going to show you when it's generating chlorine. That light's going to turn on to show you it's generating. Superchlorinate is going to come on when your switch is in the superchlorinate position. Now what you'll notice is after 24 hours that light will go off even if you have your switch in the superchlorinate position. No flow. No flow is going to flash for several seconds every single time your pump cuts on, whether you cut it on or your timer cuts on. What it's doing is it's checking itself for flow. Once it checks itself for flow and gets an okay, that light goes off. So that always comes on when your pump first cuts on. Your check salt light, that's basically saying your salt level is getting low and you need to check your salt. Your high salt is when your salt's a little too high, you need to check your salt and you'll have to bring that salt level down. Now inspect cell is going to show up in two different ways depending on how the light is on. If it's on solid, then there's an issue with your salt cell. It probably needs to be cleaned. It's having a problem producing chlorine. You want to take it off and clean it. If the light is flashing, which you're going to see quite a bit, every about 3 months, Hayward has it set up that every 3 months they want you to take your salt cell off and clean it. So every roughly 3 months, that inspect cell light is going to flash. And the reason it flashes is it's reminding you, it's an alarm clock, it's reminding you to take that cell off and clean it. Now, to get rid of that flashing light, you just hold down your diagnostic button for about 5 seconds and that light goes off. And then in another 3 months, it's going to come back on flashing again, just as an alarm clock to remind you to clean that cell. Now, the last thing is the very bottom of your salt system here. Of course, you have where the cord goes into it. Then you have the outlet. This is where you plug your pump up to, okay? Then here you have the little square opening. Normally it would almost look like a telephone connection where you plug in your telephone to the wall. If you have a separate cell that has a flow switch in it, you will connect it there. And then you have your copper section here, which is basically just for you to ground your salt system. For more above ground pool how-to videos, visit us at abovegroundpros.com, where we're dedicated to all above ground how-to videos.